listened for the full story, the pieces between those aspects that were weighing her down, those aspects that she was choosing to focus on. And I recognized that what she was doing was focusing on those and it was holding her back. So I listened for the story between those lines, the part that she wasn't choosing to emphasize and what she could embody to make her believe that she was this amazing woman that I saw.
Welcome to Becoming Tantalum with me, Megan Bennell. Discover your brightest self in a journey of transformation and resilience. Let's embark on this path together, starting now.
Hey there, Tantalum listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Tantalum, the show where we dive into the science behind our quest for greatness with a side of humor and a sprinkle of raw honesty. I'm your host, Megan Bennell, and today we're going to explore how your story and your spirit and your soul are like the ultimate superhero team. They're working together to shape your future. So buckle up because we're about to get a little nerdy and a lot inspiring and maybe even a tad philosophical. So let's dive in. We're going to start with a little background of where this Triad of Triumph came from. So I was listening to an interview with Jelly Roll. Yes, I love myself a solid story of rising up out of the darkness and becoming a success. So good for you, Jelly Roll. I'm really proud of you. And if you don't know the background to his story, check it out. It's really inspiring. Anywho, so he was sharing his story and his spirit and his soul in this interview. And those three words really hit me as an amazing way to think about the areas that affect the results we have in our lives, our story and our spirit and our soul. And so I'm going to summarize the importance of each of them and really what I'm kind of defining them as, and then we'll dive in. So let's start with your story. Our story is the journey that we've been on, right? The experiences and the challenges and the triumphs that have shaped who we are. And every chapter, every page has contributed to the person that we've become. And we continue to create our story. So it continues to contribute to that person that we are going to become. Your spirit is your inner drive, your passion, and your purpose. And it's that inner light that guides you even when things get tough. It's what motivates you to keep going and to strive for your dreams. And then your soul. Your soul is really the essence of who you are. So it's your deepest values, it's your unique essence, it's your true self, and it's what makes you you. So you have your story and your spirit and your soul. So as we move through this episode, remember this: if you embrace your past and listen to your spirit and honor your soul, all of those elements become aligned. And that's when you find yourself on a path that's truly fulfilling and uniquely yours. Now, notice all of this is inner work, right? None of this has anything to do with externally working on something. And yet, the effect of working on your story and your spirit and your soul has rippling compound effects on your external life, which is amazing. So let's dive deeper into that first concept, your story. Now, I know what you're thinking, that isn't this just a bunch of fluff about our past, right? But it's not quite, which that's actually pretty funny because every time I meet with a new client, not every time, but very often, they think of coaching like therapy and like, are they going to have to dig up all the past and all of that? And I always tell them, like, no, that's not really what this is about. But here we are talking about it. So, our personal narrative is more powerful than you might realize. So there's a psychologist, Dan McAdams, who explains that our personal narrative helps us to integrate our past experiences, so what we've been through, into a coherent story. And that in turn helps make sense of who we are and who we want to become. So it's important to your future. It's like your life's way of creating a greatest hits album, right? If you look all through your life. But it's not just about reminiscing, because there's research that I found from the University of Toronto that says that a well-crafted personal narrative, so the way that you're telling your story, is linked to higher levels of life satisfaction and resilience. So, my friends, your story isn't just about a trip down memory lane. It's about strategically figuring out what that narrative should be to help with the blueprint for your future. So, what exactly does that mean? Because your past is your past and you can't change it, right? Well, kind of. So, there's lots of ways to tell a story. Trust me, I know. We have a bazillion kids' books in our house, and I'm telling you, I think I have six that are the Three Little Pigs, and they're all totally different. But, anyways, some stories from your past might be true. Some ways you tell it may also not be true. And we need to make sure, so everything that I'm telling you, we need to make sure that we're focusing on truth. I will never ever tell you that you need to explain something, utilize something that's not true. But there's a lot of versions of the truth that vary based on what you focus on. And you would know that if you read history books, right? The history of the United States of America, if you will. There's all kinds of books telling the same story, but with a different focus. They may be true and also true, but they're focusing on a different aspect. This is where the true power of your story comes in. If you focus on the aspects that leave you feeling guilty or broken, a failure, a victim, right? You're allowing that story to shape you into a person that really embodies those characteristics. And I would just venture to guess that those aren't the characteristics that you would like to be defined by or as. But if instead you choose to focus on the aspects that highlight things like your strength or resilience, your power, or your growth, then those are the characteristics from the story that are going to allow you to be embodied by that. And now your story's empowering you instead of holding you back. It's not weighing you down, right? It's lifting you up. So let me give you an example. Recently, I met an absolutely amazing woman whose past was anything but perfect. And as I sat in her chair, she told me her story. And she was focused on abandonment and guilt and failure and lack of love and lack of worthiness and so much more, right? As she's telling the story, those are the pieces that she's really emphasizing and that she's really stuck on. Now, let me be clear, her story was super rough. It was riddled with abuse and neglect and toxicity. It was awful, the story that she was telling. And the ironic thing is that the people that had abused and neglected and were toxic to her were the very people that now, like in present day, she's still seeking love and approval from. And so I just listened, but I listened really hard and I listened for the full story, the pieces between those aspects that were weighing her down, those aspects that she was choosing to focus on. And I recognized that what she was doing was focusing on those and it was holding her back. So I listened for the story between those lines, the part that she wasn't choosing to emphasize, but what could be what she could use and what she could embody to make her believe that she was this amazing woman that I saw, right? So when she was all done telling this story, I asked her if I could tell her a different story. And I told her a story of bravery and resilience and unconditional love and success against all odds and grace. And this story that I told her highlighted the impressive spirit of a little girl and the love that was and still is chasing that girl, the display of strength that she had in the face of adversity. And I shared with her how that story helped to create an incredibly strong woman who's capable of anything and has proven that and is absolutely worthy and deserving of love and success. And I explained that this woman had everything that she needs and has the power to let go of those things that aren't serving her. And the thing is, I told her story, but with a different focus. And when I explained that to her, with tears in both of our eyes, like we were literally just sitting there, her standing behind me, me in her chair, just crying, she had expressed gratitude for this new version and almost a relief that she had never thought of it that way. She had never seen herself in that light, and she never thought that she was truly worthy of love or success. And she was looking for it, obviously, in all the wrong places, and in places that even if she got it, weren't going to satisfy her the way that she needed. All I did was pull the pieces in between the lines of what she was emphasizing. It was all right there in her story. It just wasn't her focus. All of us have a story. Some are marred with abuse and failure, and some are marred with depression and regret, and some are heavy with grief. Those same stories, though, your story included, can be highlighting the strengths and the characteristics that you have that are a gift to you from this story that you have lived. And they can be a gift to those around you as well, and to your future self as well. My question to you, my friends, as you listen, is how are you telling your story? What does your narrative say? Are you telling your story in a way that reminds you that you're a victim, that you're weak, that you're broken, that you're a failure, that, this is the reason why it is, you are where you are, but in such a negative way? Or are you telling a story in a way that builds you up, that highlights your growth, that empowers you to continue on the path to a life that you love, a person that you love, and a future that you deserve? Here's the sticky part about your story. When you tell it to others, not only do they hear it, but you hear it. My friend, you're telling it to yourself as well. So take caution with the stories that you tell yourself, because you are always listening to yourself. Your thoughts and your emotions and your actions are very, very tied to what you hear. And you hear more of yourself than anything else in this world. So if you want to change the results that you have in your life, you need to change the narrative that you're allowing yourself to think and to speak. So, simple question to you: is your current story serving you? Or is it time for that narrative to be rewritten? Let's talk about spirit. It's not like we're going to talk about ghosts or anything, although wouldn't that be a really cool idea for Halloween? I'm not sure how I would tie that in. I'm going to ask you about it. But I'm referring to your spirit, like your inner drive, your passion, your sense of purpose. And this is what gets you out of bed on a Monday morning when you'd rather be hitting snooze, right? This is what causes you to push and to push and to push in such a positive way, even when things are tough. So there's a psychologist, Martin Siegelman. He says that having a sense of purpose is a key factor in overall well-being and longevity. And I think you've probably heard that a lot before. That's kind of a well-known thing, that if you have purpose, there's something to wake up to, something to live for, something to work hard for. It's like this personal fuel that keeps that engine inside of you running. And here's the fun fact. There was a study done at the University of Michigan that showed that people with a strong sense of purpose have better mental health. And that they're more likely to engage in proactive behaviors. So going after those things that they want. So if you're feeling stuck, my friend, it might be time to reevaluate what it is that really makes your spirit soar, and find ways to inject more of that into your daily routine. And I'm going to give you action steps, as always, later. And that's really what we're going to do, is what gives you kind of that passion and that fire. But before that, there's kind of a deeper level to this spirit. And that is really figuring out what your current or desired purpose is. And here's the thing: to light that fuel, it doesn't take much, right? It takes little changes that you're consistent with, but those little tiny changes have huge rippling effects and impacts on your life. And the first step to making the right changes for you is to determine what your purpose is. Currently, I literally still jokingly say, as I leave for work every day, or as I'm switching hats throughout my day, that I'm off to save the world. And I kind of say that jokingly, but I'm kind of serious, because keep in mind that I've been in my life a teacher and an administrator, all kinds of other random things, obviously a life coach, along with a wife and a friend and a daughter and a mother, right? But I would say that same phrase kind of jokingly every time my role switched, every time I was off to do something different. And I think that inside my head, like I'm off to save the world. Because I might not be the CEO of a nonprofit that saves children in third world countries from hunger, but what I do on a daily basis does make a difference. Whether it be with a coworker or a student or a friend or a client or my own kids, how I show up and what I get done and who I am to them, all of that is my purpose. That's what drives me. And one interaction at a time, I'm making a difference. And I really feel that way. That's like the inner purpose that I feel, is lighting up the world, one little tiny person, thing, difference at a time. And so the difference that I'm always striving to make is obviously a positive one, a light one. And in that aspect, one positive, lighting up the world change at a time I'm saving the world. And so I know that that sounds a little fluffy and a little silly, but you really can think that what you do makes a difference, even if your purpose is being a stay at home mom, even if your purpose is running a company, even if your purpose is being a wife, whatever it is that in your life drives you. And maybe it's none of those things, but what is it? You need to have that purpose, that thing where you feel like you have passion, that you're making a difference, that you're loving it, that you have joy. That's going to drive the change that you need to make, all those little tiny changes that you need to make to continue to follow that purpose with passion and drive. So that's kind of the deeper side of your spirit, is really figuring that out. So what is your current purpose? Is it writing a book? Is it starting a company? Is it raising kids? Maybe it's focused on you. Is it getting emotionally more in tune with yourself? Is it getting in better shape? Is it eating healthier? Is it teaching your kids? Is it building a home? Is it saving lives in the hospital or on the streets? Is it putting out fires, either metaphorically or physically? All of those are a purpose, and amazing ones. None of them are more important to you in your life than any other one. You get to pick what your purpose is. So once you give that some thought, right? Now that you have your purpose, now what? Now you look at what changes you need to make on a daily basis that will allow you to pursue that purpose with passion and joy and all of your heart. And those little changes, this isn't even talking about a massive goal that you have to like break down and figure out what obstacles you have and what you need to get done. No, it's just talking about little things that will allow your spirit to follow that purpose with passion. And the little changes can be things like a morning routine. They can be how you talk to yourself. They could be being more organized. It could be being more aware of your time management, working on your time management. So, what changes, like little things, can you make so that your spirit is free to follow after your heart and pursue your purpose? What is your purpose currently? What habits or routines are an obstacle to you living out that purpose? And on the flip side of that, what habits or routines do you need to establish to allow your spirit to soar and with joy follow this pursuit of your passion? So spend some time thinking about those questions. And I know that this is, like I said, a bigger topic to really think about, but finding the answers and then being proactive in making them happen, those little changes happen, is what's going to give your spirit the spark that you might be needing, that motivation, that drive, that inner fuel that you need to push forward. Okay, so we talked about story, we talked about your spirit. Let's dive into the soul. So this one's a little trickier to define, but I'm going to call it like the essence of who you are. So the values and the beliefs and the core identity that guides your actions. There was research done at the Harvard Center for Public Interest Professions. That sounds very intriguing. And it highlighted that aligning your actions, so what you do on that daily basis, with your core values leads to greater satisfaction and stronger sense of self. So it's like having your own personal compass, if you will, that always points you to the true north of you. But that's where it gets tricky, because I'm going to be honest, knowing all the people in my life and my village, knowing my clients, knowing myself as a human, how many of us truly have very clear values and beliefs and a core identity? And I would venture to say, definitely a minority, for sure. And so I was describing this to my kids the other day because I was explaining to them that they can use who they truly are as a way to guide their thoughts, their emotions, their actions, and their results will follow in line with who they are. And I was describing it to them like a lane in bowling, right? So you have the pins at the end and you have a lot of wood in between those pins and you. And you know the point, obviously. You throw the ball and you knock down those pins. But seriously, how often does that actually happen? You roll the ball perfectly, all the pins strike, right? Not often, unless you're a professional bowler, and good for you. I'm happy for you. But between throwing that ball, and that's probably not even the term. Is it even called throwing? You should tell me if that's not the term. Anyways, between you throwing that ball, rolling the ball, maybe would be a better term, and it getting to those pins is a lot of room for error. And the worst of all those errors would be resulting in a gutter ball because then you never had the chance to reach the pins at all, right? Here's what being clear on your soul allows you to do. You know those bumpers that you can put up when you're like a kid and you're bowling and it keeps the ball in the lane? That's what being clear on your soul does for you. So those bumpers in bowling keeps your errors from knocking you off course so that eventually, even if you're not exactly going straight, right? We're human, you reach those pins down at the end of the lane. Your bumpers that you can put up are your values and your beliefs and your core identity. And if you're clear on those, any thought or any emotion, any action, any behavior, any habit that you choose to take that's outside of those values, it raises a red flag and it tells you, whoa, 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 you're not staying in your lane. Like, we need to go back. And that's what those allow you to do. But those need to be clear or else they're non existent. So you'll know if they're clear. If those bumpers are up, you'll know that you need to not do that, that you need to say something differently, that you need to behave differently because it's not keeping you in your lane. And when you get in touch with your soul, when you're clear on your values, when you're sturdy in your beliefs, then you know who you are at the very core. You know who that person is. And all of that will help to keep you in your lane. They're going to be the bumpers of all of your efforts, all of your thoughts, all of your actions, keeping your ball rolling towards that purpose. And you get to determine what those bumpers are because everybody's are different. Your boundaries for yourself, essentially, right? That's what they're made out of. So you get to determine what makes you pause and reconsider what you're thinking or feeling or the actions that you're taking. And without clarity on that, you're bowling without bumpers. And if you're anything like my kids, oh my goodness, you need those bumpers. Let's just say this about that. So if you ever have a hope of getting that ball all the way to the pins, you've got to put up those bumpers. So my question to you on the aspect of your soul is, who are you? And what are your values? And what do you believe? And what is your identity at your very, very core? Not how other people define you, not what other people believe, not what other people have as priorities or values. What are yours? Give some time to that and really tease out what that is and who it is that you want to be. And ask yourself, what boundaries can you put in place to keep you straight on that person's path, the real you? So, what are your bumpers made of? How do these three things work together? Because we've got these stories that we're retelling, and we've got this spirit that we've got to ignite, and we've got this soul that we've got to figure out so that we're headed in the right direction. All of these three elements really work together as this ultimate superhero. So, picture this: your story is the map, your spirit is the fuel, and your soul is the compass. So now you've got a map, you've got that motivation, you've got that fuel, you've got a compass to keep you on track. And when they're all aligned, you're on the path to creating a future that's not just successful for you, but also deeply fulfilling, which is the much more important part. So that all sounds great. But what can you do today to help harmonize your story and your spirit and your soul? I'm going to give you three main things. One, as I mentioned before, really reflect on your story, on the narrative you're telling. Take some time, write down that personal narrative. What are the key events that have shaped you? And how can you reframe it, refocus it to highlight your strengths and your growth? How can you tell it in such a way that's still true, but that allows you to embody the best parts of what came out of that story? Number two, you need to identify your passion and your purpose. One of these things is much easier than the other. Start with thinking about what gets you excited. What is that? What gets you excited? Make a list of activities or goals that really energize you, and then figure out a way to incorporate at least one of those, even if it's in a small way, into your daily routine. And then the bigger picture onto your purpose. And that might take a bit more time, like we've talked about. But what is that? Give yourself some time to think about what your current purpose is in life. And Are your current actions on a daily basis helping you to fulfill that passion and joy? And if not, what's holding you back? What are those obstacles? What is it that you need to implement? So that's kind of a longer term picture. But to start, you can just work on what is it that gets you excited and how can you incorporate something like that, little bits at a time, into your daily life. And then aligning with your core values. So write down, and this is not the only way to do this, and it's certainly not all of it, but just to start, write down 3 of your top values. 3, just 3. Are your daily actions in sync with those values? And if not, how can you make adjustments so that you can live more authentically to you? That's going to help you start to build up those bumpers and help to keep you on track. So really figure out, what are your top 3 values. All right, here's a little bonus tip for you. Yay, bonus. It's like overtime. Like you get a bonus, you get a bonus. I would really encourage you to share your goals and your values with a friend or a mentor, because sometimes just saying them out loud gives you a whole new perspective and a built-in accountability, because you just shared it with someone else. And if you don't have a friend or a mentor to share it with, share them with me. I'm always happy to hear, listen, and help to hold you accountable. So, my friends, that's a wrap on today's idea of really marrying your soul and your spirit and your story to make your own amazing superhero that's within yourself. Remember that they're really like that ultimate dream team. So, reframing that story, really figuring out your spirit and igniting that spirit, and then coming to terms with exactly who it is that you are, your story, your spirit, and your soul. When they all work together, you're not just navigating your future, but you're really shaping it, which is where we want to be. So, until next time, I want you to keep rocking out that next version of yourself. And I hope that you are having a great time on the path to becoming your own version of Tantalum. And if you enjoyed this episode, of course, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review. If you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. Your support in this whole nerding and inspiring show is very helpful in continuing to keep it going. So I look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, enjoy.
Thank you for joining me today. If you want to take all of these concepts and tools to a deeper level, apply them to your life, and watch the transformation happen, I would love for you to join the Tantalum Tribe. That's a monthly membership where all of our community has access to live coaching, self-paced courses, guest coaches, podcast study guides, anonymous question boards, and more. You too can transform your life using the tools and strategies that we have, with accountability built in from our community. I really hope that you join us at tantalumcoaching.com. That's TANTALUM coaching.com. Just click join the tribe. I can't wait to see you in there.
An ironic media production. Visit us at ironickmedia.com.